In the Odyssey, Ulysses meets Aeolus, the king of the winds. It is noon, and the paths of Bloom and Stephen almost cross in the offices of a popular newspaper. Stephen is clearly attracted to the journalist's witty and vulgar conversation, but some of Joyce's fellow writers were less enthusiastic about his own vulgarisms.
Welcome to the show, welcome. And on today's programme, we're going to be meeting some people who say that James Joyce has ruined their lives. So who exactly was James Joyce? We have an expert here to tell us. Professor, what's going on here?
Well, modernism takes on a lot of different forms. Its followers, for example, in literary modernism...
Sorry, when you say followers, is this a cult we're talking about here?
No, I wouldn't describe it as a cult, really. The modernist movement has to be understood in the context of the social and cultural changes that Europe went through at the beginning
Okay,
and
Professor,
the last
you've really cleared it up for us there. Thank you. It's time for us to meet our first guest. Now, she says that her world has been turned upside down ever since she read Joyce's most famous work, Ulysses. Would you please welcome onto the show, Virginia Woolf. Virginia, you're very welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, Virginia, you've had some pretty harsh things to say about James Joyce, especially regarding his most celebrated work, Ulysses.
Well, I suppose that depends on how you define harsh.
It says here that you said that when you read Ulysses, it was like watching a boot boy at Claridge's squeezing his pimples. Virginia, what did you mean by a boot boy?
Well, I should have thought that was obvious. It means the sort of servant who cleans and polishes one's boots.
Virginia, why did you say a boot boy? Why not say a professor?
I wish to indicate that I found Joyce's novel rather crude, underbred, that sort of thing.
Underbred?
It means I found the writing, the quality of the writing, to be at a level one might expect from a self-educated working man.
But you know that Joyce was not self-educated.
Well, I believe he went to college in Ireland.
Yeah, okay, we have a question here, sir.
Will someone please tell me how Virginia could say Ulysses was crap and yet just a few years later produce a novel like Mrs. Dalloway which bears unmistakable evidence of Joyce's direct influence?
I have never denied that Joyce's method was highly developed.
It just doesn't add up, Virginia. It just doesn't add up.
Maybe it means she was a better, braver, more generous writer than she was a critic.
Yeah.
You want a piece of this? All you have to do is ask nicely.
It's time for us to meet our second guest. Now, this is a man whose own most famous, or indeed infamous, novel was itself banned for almost 40 years. Yet he himself was one of the first to criticise Ulysses for its obscenity. Would you please welcome on D.H. Lawrence. D.H., thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Now, D.H., I'd say that a lot of our viewers would be surprised to hear that you think Ulysses is an indecent novel.
Old fags and cabbage stumps, stewed in the filthy juice of obscenity. That's not literature.
What would you call it?
Dirty-minded journalism.
But surely as someone who's tried to bring sexual matters out into the open and who himself has been described as a pornographer, surely you, of all people, would be the last to condemn a book like Ulysses.
You failed to grasp one essential point.
Which is?
I hate sex. Yes, I hate it. I hate the way it insists its way in our lives. It's such a limitation. We would be much happier if we didn't have to think about it all the time.
Speak for yourself, Mr. Lawrence.